The kitchen at Vittorio's runs hot on Tuesday nights, which means Marco yells louder than usual, and the pasta water boils over 3 times before we even hit the dinner rush. I'm working section 4, the one closest to the bar where the regulars settle in and order the same thing they ordered last week, the week before, and probably the week before that. My uniform is starched stiff this morning. The collar digs into my neck. By 9 p.m. I've been standing for 6 hours, and my shifts don't end until closing, which means another 2 hours minimum. The money is worth the ache. Chloe's tuition bill arrived yesterday. Mom left that job at the clinic 3 years ago, and I've been covering since then. No resentment there. Not really. Just necessity wearing itself into routine. What isn't routine is the man at table 12. Franco Giardoni comes to Vittorio's every Wednesday and Thursday without fail. I know this because I work sections that intersect with his, and everyone in this restaurant knows who he is. Not explicitly. Nobody says it out loud, but the way the owner greets him personally, the way the other servers step back when he arrives, the way his men in expensive coats sit at nearby tables drinking espresso and watching, all of it broadcasts something beyond a regular patron. He's tall, mid-30s probably, with the kind of face that looks carved from something harder than marble. Dark eyes, darker hair. There's a scar on his jaw that makes him look like he's won fights I wouldn't survive 5 seconds in. He dresses like money tastes good. Italian suits, watches that probably cost more than my car payment, rings with initials pressed into gold. Tonight, he arrives alone. That's the first wrong note. No entourage. No men in suits flanking him. Just Franco, walking through the door at 8:45 p.m. with his shoulders carrying weight that didn't seem to exist last Thursday. His assistant, Dominic, I think his name is, usually sits to his left. I heard from one of the other servers that Dominic had a car accident this morning. Bad one. The server said it with the tone of someone discussing a business problem, not a tragedy. In Franco's world, maybe they're the same thing. Gerald, who usually takes that section, sees Franco come in and suddenly remembers he needs to help in the back. Stephen suddenly becomes very invested in a table of businessmen on the other side of the restaurant. That leaves me. I'm newer, less established in the hierarchy of who serves which important people. I'm also expendable, which is probably the logic here. The manager catches my eye and does that little chin gesture that means move. So, I move. Franco doesn't look up from his phone when I approach. He's scrolling through something, his jaw working like he's grinding through a thought that tastes bad. The table smells like him before I even get close enough to set down water. Something dark and expensive. Cedar, maybe. Something that makes the air feel different. Welcome to Vittorio's. Can I start you with something to drink? The words come out automatic. I've said them maybe 10,000 times. They feel different when he finally looks up. His eyes are darker than they seem from across the restaurant, almost black. There's nothing soft in them, nothing that breaks for social courtesy. He studies me the way someone might study a painting they're not sure they like, cataloging details before deciding on a verdict. Vodka. Don't give me the house garbage. His accent curls around the words like smoke. Italian, definitely. And bring me the swordfish. We have a special tonight on the branzino. The swordfish from yesterday and... I said swordfish. He looks back at his phone. The conversation, such as it was, is over. I should leave it alone. That's the smart move. That's what the other servers would do. That's what someone who needs this job and this money and this stability would do. But there's something in his tone. The casual assumption that his refusal means I didn't understand him, that I need correction, that gets under my skin like a splinter. The branzino is better. I don't soften it with politeness. Fresher. The swordfish has been aging since yesterday afternoon. He looks up again. This time, there's something different in his expression. Not offense, exactly. Something closer to recognition. Like I've just done something he didn't expect. You're the first waitress in this restaurant to argue with me about the menu. I'm the first waitress honest enough to tell you the kitchen fucked up the order yesterday. I'm burning professional capital here. I know it. I don't care. You can have the swordfish if you want. But you wanted good food, not just what you ordered. The corner of his mouth does something that might become a smile if it weren't interrupted by whatever he's thinking. He sets the phone down on the table, face down, and folds his hands over it like he's settling in for something. Branzino then. Whatever it comes with. I walk away before he can see that I'm the type to feel small when I stand my ground, and someone doesn't immediately push back. The rest of the shift moves through me like I'm already somewhere else. I take orders, I deliver plates, I smile at the right moments, and remember that the couple at table 8 likes extra lemon. Franco eats methodically. He doesn't use his phone again. He watches the restaurant the way a general might watch a battlefield, taking in exits and entrances, noting who stands too close to whom, cataloging the positions of his men scattered throughout the space like chess pieces. By 11:30, most of the restaurant has emptied out. The kitchen is cleaning down. Other servers have already clocked out. Franco is still here. He hasn't asked for the check. He hasn't signaled for anything. He's just sitting, and he's looking at me every time I glance his way. The manager, who should know better, comes over and tells me I can close his table whenever. Translation. Figure out why he's lingering and solve it. I approach with the check already prepared, already resigned to whatever happens next. I'm going to need you to walk with me. Franco doesn't ask. Doesn't frame it as a question. Just states it like it's already decided. Already happening. I need to finish closing. You need to walk with me to the back patio. For 5 minutes, that's all. His men, positioned throughout the restaurant, have stopped moving. They're not looking directly at us. But they're not looking anywhere else either. There's weight in this moment. Pressure. The kind that makes the air feel compressed. I set down the check. I follow him toward the back. The patio at Vittorio's is covered but open to the elements. High stone walls, a fire pit that's been extinguished for the season, several tables no one uses anymore. The rain started around 9 p.m. as a light drizzle, something nobody paid attention to. Now it's different. It comes in sheets, loud and aggressive, drumming against the stone overhead. The smell of wet earth rises up. Everything smells clean and dangerous, like the world is being washed and we're somehow on the wrong side of it. Franco leans against one of the stone pillars. He lights a cigarette without offering me one. The smoke curls through the damp air, and for a moment, I'm hyper-aware of how isolated this space is, how far from the front of the restaurant and other people, and help if I need it. Do you know who I am? He asks. The man at table 12 who doesn't like house vodka. I'm not trying to be cute. I'm trying to keep my hands from shaking. Do you know what I do? Run a business, I assume. You come here, you order expensive things. You have men around you that don't order food. That's the observable data. The business is more complicated than what you can observe. He ashes the cigarette into the rain. But yes, I run things. And part of running things is dealing with problems, witnesses, people who see things they shouldn't see, people who become liabilities. He pauses, lets that hang. You testified in court once, didn't you? Against your ex-boyfriend when he hit you. My stomach drops. The fact that he knows this, that he has access to information about me, doesn't hit me as much as the implication. He's looked into me. He's dug into my history like I'm worth digging into. How do you know that? I know a lot of things. I know you live with your sister, Chloe. I know she's 17 and has anemia, and that her tuition at St. Catherine's is $15,000 a year, which is why you work doubles. I know you wanted to be a lawyer, but you took a semester off and never went back. He turns to face me fully now. I know you're capable of telling the truth even when it costs you. Why would you know any of this? Because sometimes potential liability becomes potential interest. And I'm interested in you, Haley Cole. I have been for 5 years, watching you work in this restaurant, watching how you treat people, watching how you don't look away when things frighten you. The rain drums harder. Something in his voice, some depth underneath the words, makes my pulse pick up in a way that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the fact that he's been watching me. For 5 years. I don't finish. What would I say? That's creepy? Threatening? All of it true? He moves toward me. Not aggressive, just deliberate. His hand comes up and touches my face like he's checking if I'm real. His fingers cool from the cigarette. And before I can process what's happening, he's moved closer. The space between us has collapsed. His other hand finds my hip, and he pulls me against him. And then he's kissing me like he owns the action, like he's been thinking about it for 5 years, and he's finally decided to stop thinking. For 1 second, maybe less, I'm frozen. Then I'm hitting his chest, my palms flat against his shirt, pushing him away. He releases me immediately, like he expected exactly this response. His breathing is heavier. That's the only sign that what just happened affected him at all. Don't, I start, my hand rising between us like that will create distance. Do not ever touch me without permission again. You do, and I will end you. I will burn down every operation you have. I will call every federal agency and offer everything I know about every person in this restaurant, and I will not care what it costs me. You understand? He's watching me with an intensity that should terrify me. Maybe it does. But underneath the fear is something else. Recognition. Like he's been waiting for me to prove that I have teeth. My name is Franco Giardoni, he says quietly. And I don't think you're going to do any of those things. Then you're stupid. No. He crushes out the cigarette against the wet stone. I'm not. I'm just someone who spent a long time around people who fear me. And you're the first person in a decade who's threatened me with honesty instead of hiding behind it. I'm leaving. You have a choice. You can leave and never come back to this restaurant, and I will personally ensure that you and your sister are protected. Nothing will touch you. Nothing will threaten you. I'll make certain of it. Or you can come back tomorrow night, and we can figure out if there's something between this rage you're feeling and the way you're looking at me right now. I should choose the first option. Any rational person would. I should walk out of this patio and drive home and find a new job and tell myself this never happened. Instead, I stand there in the rain that started to seep through the stone roof, dripping cold down my neck, and I realize that I've just made a choice that's going to change everything. I don't sleep that night. I drive home from Vittorio's in the pouring rain, and my hands won't stop shaking on the steering wheel. Every red light feels like an accusation. Every car behind me could be someone watching. By the time I reach the apartment, I share with Chloe in a building that smells like other people's cooking. My nervous system has cycled through terror so many times that it defaults to numbness. Chloe is awake when I come in. She's sitting at our small kitchen table with a biology textbook open, her reading glasses slipping down her nose. She looks up at me with the particular attention that comes from being 17, and observant enough to notice when her older sister looks like she's been through something. "You're home late," she says. It's not a question. Closing shift ran long. I move past her toward the bedroom we share, which is really just a studio divided by a curtain. The lie tastes like metal. "You look like someone scared you." She closes the textbook. Chloe has this way of being direct that I used to find annoying. Now I understand it's a survival mechanism. When your parent checks out and your sibling becomes your anchor, you develop accuracy about reading their baseline. Nobody scared me. I'm just tired. Haley. She uses my full name, which means she's not going to let this dissolve. Did something happen at work? I could tell her. I could sit down and explain that the man she's heard whispers about, the one everyone seems to fear, has been watching me for 5 years and kissed me in the rain and told me I could either accept his protection or his interest. But nothing in between. I could tell her that he knows her name, knows her medical history, knows exactly how much money we need to keep her in that private school with the decent teachers and the scholarship that covers 60%. Instead, I tell her I met someone rude and it threw me off. She accepts this without believing it, which is its own kindness. I don't sleep. I lie behind the curtain and listen to Chloe breathe, and I think about Franco's hands and his voice and the way he said he'd been watching me for 5 years like that was normal. Like that was just how the world works for people like him. Wednesday morning, I call the restaurant. My manager, Derek, picks up on the second ring. Before I can speak, he says, "I knew you'd call. Take tomorrow and Friday off. You can come back Monday." I didn't even ask for time off. "A very important client requested that you have some rest. He felt you looked stressed." Derek has the tone of someone reading from a script that was written by someone else. "So you're taking the time." No argument. Franco communicated with my boss. He reached through the restaurant and rearranged my schedule like he was moving chess pieces. The violation of it, the assumption that he could do this, that he should do this, makes my stomach turn. It also means I have time to think, which might be worse than not having time. By Thursday evening, I'm climbing the walls of the apartment. Chloe's at school. Mom's at her nursing shift. I'm alone with nothing but my thoughts and the knowledge that Franco will probably be at Vittorio's tonight, and I could go back. And I could let this continue. And I could also be the type of person who makes one bad decision and builds a whole life out of it. I go back. When I arrive for the shift, the energy in the restaurant is different. Derek approaches me before I even clock in. Table 12 is reserved tonight, he says quietly. Just for him. Franco is already seated when I take my section. He's alone again, which is becoming a pattern that worries me more than it should. He's wearing a charcoal suit that fits like it was constructed on his body specifically. There's a small cut on his knuckle, new, probably from the last day or two. He doesn't look up until I'm standing across from him. "You came back," he says. Not a question. An observation. "I work here. You could have worked anywhere. You could have taken Derek's offer of time off and found a new restaurant. Different city, different job, different life." He studies my face like he's reading something written in the spaces between my features. "But you came back. I need the money. That's not why." He gestures to the chair across from him. "Sit." I can't. "I'm working." "Sit." The tone doesn't change. He's not commanding me in the traditional sense. He's just stating a fact about what's about to happen. I sit. A server passes by and doesn't acknowledge us. Derek watches from the bar but doesn't intervene. Franco leans forward slightly. "Your sister has an appointment with Dr. Hendricks on Monday. She's the best pediatric anemia specialist in the state. The consultation is covered. All of it. Tests, recommendations, whatever she needs. I've already handled the paperwork. The anger comes first. Hot and clean and uncomplicated. You can't just... I can. I have. It's done." He picks up his water glass. "The only question now is whether you accept or whether you burn that bridge because of pride. That's not about pride. That's about you buying pieces of my life. I'm not buying anything. I'm offering what you need because it became clear to me that you need it." He sets the glass down. "If I wanted to buy you, Haley, I wouldn't start with your sister's medical bills. I'd start with something that made you feel guilty for accepting. But this? This is just the truth of what's possible when someone has resources and someone else needs them. And what do you want in return? That's the interesting part. I don't want anything in return right now. Not sex, not information, not promises. I want you to let me help, and then I want you to have a conversation with me later. That's all." Derek is trying very hard to look like he's not paying attention to the fact that I'm sitting across from a customer having an intense conversation. A couple at table 4 keeps glancing at us. Franco doesn't seem to notice or care about any of it. "I'll think about it," I say finally. "You'll accept it," he corrects. "Your sister's health is not something you're going to gamble with out of spite. You're more practical than that." I stand before he can say anything else. Before I can agree or disagree or do something stupid like reach across the table and hit him again. He doesn't stop me. He just watches me walk away with that expression that suggests he already knows exactly what I'm going to do. I get through the shift on automatic. Drinks ordered, delivered, forgotten. Food arrived hot, eaten, paid for. The restaurant empties out. Franco leaves around 11 with a $100 bill under his plate and no goodbye. The absence of a goodbye is somehow more intimate than if he'd spoken. When I get home at 1 a.m, Chloe is asleep. I lie in bed and think about what it means to accept help from someone who's already started to restructure the boundaries of my life, what it means to let him do it anyway. Saturday comes like an unwanted relative. I'm at the apartment. Chloe's at a study group for her MIT interview prep, and I'm sitting on our worn couch reading articles about financial aid when someone knocks on the door. Not politely. Solid, deliberate knocking. Through the peephole, I see a man I don't recognize. Mid-40s, solid build, dark eyes that have seen things. He's dressed carefully. Not in a way that screams criminal, but in a way that communicates he doesn't blend into backgrounds. "Yes?" I open the door but keep the chain engaged. "Haley Cole?" His accent is faint but present. Italian, maybe. "I'm Dominic. I work with Franco. Can I come in?" "No. He said you might say that." Dominic shifts his weight. I notice his left arm moves carefully, like it's causing him pain. "This won't take long. I'm just here to give you information. Against every survival instinct screaming at me, I let him in. He sits on the couch like it's a throne, and he's careful, methodical, precise. His presence fills the apartment in a way that makes me understand why Franco surrounds himself with men like this. There's an organization called the Saigon Circle, Vietnamese, operates in this region, growing territory. They were content to let Franco's family control their slice until about a week ago. Dominic speaks like he's reciting facts from a business presentation. Then someone told them about the interest Franco's developed in you. They see this as weakness. They're investigating you as a potential leverage point. I don't understand. You will. The point is that Saigon Circle knows your name, your schedule, where you live. They know your sister exists and where she goes to school. They're gathering information like they're preparing to make a move. He stands. Franco didn't want you to find out about this from someone else. He wanted you to hear it straight. What do you mean, a move? They're going to... Not yet. Right now. They're just watching. Mapping. But Franco wants you aware so you understand why he's going to ask for your cooperation on some things. Not as a prisoner. As someone who now knows she's in a situation and who gets to choose how to handle it. After he leaves, I sit in the quiet of the apartment and feel the walls of my small life contract. Everything I thought was mine, my job, my routine, my plans, has been infiltrated by forces I don't fully understand and can't control. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. A text message. It's Franco. Use this phone from now on. The number you had is compromised. I'm sending someone to your apartment tomorrow with a replacement. Don't be alarmed. I stare at the message until the words blur together, and then I realize what's happened. I've stopped being the woman working at Vittorio's trying to keep her sister in school. I've become something else entirely. I've become a problem that needs solving, and Franco Giardoni has decided he's the one to solve it. The following week crawls forward. I work my shifts and watch the door. Every customer becomes a potential threat. Every car that parks outside the restaurant gets my attention. Franco appears on Monday night, sits at table 12 like it's his reserved seat, and doesn't look at me once. But his presence is a constant, a reassurance or a reminder. I still haven't decided which. On Wednesday, the Saigon Circle finally makes their play. I don't hear the car pull up beside me in the parking lot. That's what terrifies me most, the absence of warning. 1 second I'm walking toward my vehicle after closing shift, fumbling for keys in my apron pocket, and the next second a sedan cuts me off. 2 men emerge. Neither looks threatening on the surface. They're dressed ordinarily, moving with the precision of people trained in conversation and extraction. One of them says my name like he's confirming it on a clipboard. Haley Cole? Yes? I'm already backing away, already calculating distance to the restaurant entrance, already knowing I won't make it. We need to have a conversation about your relationship with Franco Giardoni. I pull out my phone. I just dial the number Franco gave me and hold it to my ear. The phone rings twice before he answers. I'm being approached in the parking lot, I tell him, my voice steady in a way that surprises me. 2 men, they know my name. Stay on the line. The sound of movement comes through the speaker. Car doors. Voices exchanged rapidly. Franco's voice cuts back in. I'm coming to you. Do not hang up. 7 minutes. That's how long it takes Franco to arrive. 7 minutes where the 2 men stand near my car, making it clear through their positioning that leaving isn't an option. 7 minutes where I grip my phone and keep my breathing controlled and wonder if this is where my life ends. In a parking lot behind the restaurant where I've worked for 5 years. Franco arrives with 3 vehicles. Not subtle. Dominic is with him, his left arm still in a sling, but his posture communicating that he's ready for whatever comes next. The men from the Saigon Circle take one look at the arrangement and make a tactical decision to leave. They walk back to their sedan without saying anything. They don't need to. The message has been delivered. They know who I am. They know how to find me. They're evaluating whether I'm worth the effort. Franco doesn't hug me or comfort me. He just takes my keys and tells me to get in his car. The drive to my apartment is silent, except for the sound of the engine. When we arrive, he asks if Chloe is home. She is. She's doing homework at the kitchen table when Franco and Dominic walk in behind me like they own the space. "This is Franco," I tell her. And her eyes widen because she's 17 and smart enough to understand that mysterious men in suits don't appear in your apartment for good reasons. "And this is Dominic. We need to talk about something." Franco sits across from Chloe like they're having a business meeting. He explains the situation with the precision of someone used to delivering bad news. He tells her about the Saigon Circle. He tells her about the surveillance. He tells her that her school has security concerns, but that he's arranging a detail to monitor the entrances and exits discreetly. Chloe listens with the focus that comes from understanding your life has just changed parameters. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't ask questions until he finishes. "What happens now?" she finally asks. "Now you both come with me," Franco says. "There's a property I maintain. Safe, secure. You'll stay there while I resolve the situation." "For how long?" I ask. "Until the threat is neutralized or until you decide you want to leave. Your choice." It's not really a choice. We both know that. But Franco phrases it that way anyway, which I'm beginning to understand is how he operates. He offers the illusion of autonomy while controlling the actual options. 45 minutes later, Chloe and I pack bags with the weight of people who know they're not coming back to their normal lives anytime soon. Franco waits in the living room while we gather what we need. Chloe takes her textbooks, her laptop, her favorite hoodie. I take clothes in colors I actually wear instead of the uniform palette of work. We move through the apartment like we're visiting someone else's memories. Franco leads us to an apartment building in a neighborhood I don't recognize. The security is invisible until we're inside. Cameras hidden in architectural features. Access panels disguised as design elements. Elevator systems that require a key code. The apartment itself is large, modern, expensive in the way that doesn't announce itself through decoration, but through quality. High ceilings. Floor-to-ceiling windows with smart glass that adjusts tint electronically. A kitchen that looks professionally designed. 2 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. Everything is neutral. Grays, whites, blacks. Like the space was created by someone who wanted to disappear into the background of their own life. Franco shows us around like he's displaying inventory. He tells us we can order food through a service he uses, that there's a chef available if we want prepared meals, that there's a gym in the building and a library and entertainment systems. He tells us the Wi-Fi password. He tells us how to contact him if we need anything. He does not tell us we're prisoners, but the infrastructure communicates it clearly. The windows don't open. The doors require key cards to exit. There's no balcony. No way out that isn't monitored. "How often do you bring people here?" Chloe asks, running her hand along the kitchen counter. "Rarely," Franco answers. "Usually only when there's a specific threat that requires containment." "And we're being contained," I say. "You're being protected," he corrects. "The containment is necessary for the protection to work." The first day is disorienting. Chloe and I navigate the space like we're guests in someone else's home, which we are. We don't touch anything unnecessarily. We speak in lower voices than normal. By evening, we've settled into a strange routine. Chloe studies for her upcoming MIT interview. I read a novel I picked up randomly, trying to focus on anything except the fact that I'm no longer free to leave. We order food from the service Franco mentioned. It arrives in professional packaging, better than anything we've eaten in months. By the second day, the tension has shifted from acute to chronic. This is happening. This is our reality now. On Thursday evening, Franco arrives unannounced. He finds us in the living area. Chloe working on calculus homework, me pretending to read a novel. He sits in the armchair across from us like he's been invited, and the ease of his movements in this space tells me he comes here more than he admitted. "How are you adjusting?" he asks Chloe directly. It's comfortable. Imprisoning, but comfortable. She doesn't soften it. Chloe has never been good at social filtering, and apparently crisis doesn't change that. Fair assessment. Franco doesn't look offended. "I have information about your anemia. Dr. Hendricks, the specialist Haley mentioned. She's agreed to see you Monday. All the testing and consultation will be covered. If she recommends surgery, we proceed. If she recommends medication management, we do that." "Why would you do that?" Chloe asks. "We're not your responsibility. Your sister matters to me," Franco says simply. "Which means you matter to me by extension, and people I'm connected to don't suffer through medical crises when I have the resources to prevent it." He stands and walks to the window, looking out at the city below. There's also something else you should know about your future education. I have connections with several universities, MIT included. If you're interested in discussing options, I'm happy to facilitate introductions. Chloe's expression shifts. I can see her doing calculations, weighing her pride against opportunity, weighing her independence against reality. She's 17. She's brilliant. And she's also practical in a way that sometimes makes me sad. I want to think about it, she says finally. Take your time, Franco replies. The offer isn't going anywhere. After Franco leaves, Chloe turns to me. Her eyes are serious in a way that makes her look older than 17. He's the man from the parking lot, isn't he? The one you've been seeing at the restaurant. It's complicated. It's not actually. He's clearly dangerous, and clearly interested in you. The only complication is how you feel about that. She returns to her calculus. For what it's worth, I think he's going to help with my application. And I'm going to let him, because I'm not going to be noble about your complicated situation by sacrificing my future. I want to argue with her logic. I want to tell her that accepting help from Franco Giardoni comes with costs we can't predict or control. Instead, I sit with the realization that my 17-year-old sister has assessed this situation more clearly than I have. Franco is dangerous. He's also the only person currently capable of keeping us safe. And whether that's enough to justify everything else remains the question I can't answer. That night, I stand at the window looking out at the city lights below. People out there are going about their lives without understanding how quickly everything can change. Without knowing how one moment in a restaurant parking lot can erase the illusion of control. Franco's apartment is like being suspended above the world, visible to it, but not part of it anymore. Protected, but isolated. Safe, but trapped. I think about the kiss in the rain. I think about the way Franco said he'd been watching me for 5 years. I think about how he moved through my life like he was already entitled to space in it. And I think about how, standing in this beautiful cage, I'm starting to wonder if he was always right. If I never had a choice about any of this. If meeting him was inevitable the moment I started working at Vittorio's. By the end of the first week in the apartment, I stopped trying to leave. By the end of the second week, I stop expecting to leave. The third week settles into something that resembles routine, which is perhaps the most disturbing part of being contained. Franco arrives every evening at 7 o'clock. He brings dinner sometimes, stays for hours other times, and occasionally just sits in the living room while Chloe studies, and I pretend to read. There's nothing romantic about it. It's observational, like he's checking that we're adapting to our imprisonment without fracturing. Chloe notices the pattern immediately. She starts timing his arrivals, which I find both amusing and unsettling. One evening she tells him, "You're very punctual for a criminal." And Franco actually laughs. Not the controlled version I've learned to expect, but something that reaches his eyes. "Punctuality is how organizations function," he replies. "People who keep schedules are people you can trust." The way he treats my sister is what breaks something open inside me. He doesn't condescend to her. He asks her opinion about books she's reading, engages her in conversations about MIT's programs, and when she makes a comment about his operation, he actually listens instead of dismissing her as a teenager. One night she asks him directly why he's never married, and instead of deflecting, he answers with unexpected honesty. "Because the people I attract are attracted to the position, not the person," he says. And I learned early that the difference matters. By the second week, Franco and I begin having conversations that happen separately from Chloe's presence. He appears in the kitchen while I'm making coffee and stays longer than necessary. The conversations start about mundane things, what I'm reading, whether I've adjusted to the apartment, and gradually deepen into territory that feels dangerous for different reasons. One evening, he sits on the kitchen counter and tells me about his father. Franco was 24 when his father died of a heart attack. He was supposed to go into business, something legitimate, something that didn't involve blood and loyalty oaths. Instead, his father collapsed at a restaurant, and by the time Franco made the funeral arrangements, the family was already being circled by competitors who sensed weakness. "I didn't choose this," he says quietly. "I was chosen by circumstance and obligation. I surprise myself by responding with something closer to empathy than judgment. That doesn't make the choices you've made since then any better, but it does make them understandable. Franco watches me while I say this, and I feel like he's cataloging my response, storing it somewhere important. You're the first person who separated those two things. Most people want to excuse one based on the other. I'm not excusing anything. I'm just acknowledging that people aren't usually evil because they wake up and decide to be. They become complicated because circumstances leave them no real alternatives. And what about your circumstances? He asks. Do they excuse your feelings about me? I don't answer because I don't have an answer. What I feel for him is tangled between gratitude and violation, between attraction and coercion. I'm drawn to his intelligence and repelled by his certainty that he can reshape my life without asking permission. He's simultaneously my captor and my protector, and I'm beginning to understand that these things don't cancel each other out. They exist together in a way that makes everything more complicated. By Friday of the third week, everything changes. Franco's phone rings during dinner. He answers, and his entire body goes rigid in a way I've never seen before. The call lasts perhaps 30 seconds. He listens more than speaks, says something brief in Italian, and disconnects. The Saigon Circle has Dominic, he says to the air between us. They're offering a trade. Chloe stops eating. I set down my fork carefully, like sudden movements will shatter something. What trade? Him for you. The simplicity of it is what hits hardest. Not the threat, which is clear enough, but the fact that there's no negotiation possible, no middle ground. Either Franco gives up his most trusted operative, or I become a bargaining chip for something worse. What are you going to do? I ask. Franco stands and walks to the window. His reflection in the glass shows a man calculating geometry. Distances, timing, probability. I have 3 options. Option 1 is to negotiate for Dominic's release using information I have about their operations. This works, but it costs me leverage and marks you as permanently important to them, which means permanent targeting. And option 2? I stage a rescue. Extract Dominic with force. This resolves the immediate situation, but escalates the conflict and puts you at greater risk, because now they know direct confrontation fails. What's 3? He turns to face me. I accept the trade. I give them you, and I lose the one person I was actually trying to protect. The math of it is terrible. Every option ends with me as a problem that needs solving. Every option leaves Chloe in danger. Every option confirms what I've suspected since the parking lot. I don't have genuine choices. I have the illusion of choices that Franco presents to me while he controls the actual parameters. There's a 4th option, I say. Franco waits. What if we compiled everything we know about them? You have your own intelligence from your organization. I've been here for weeks observing your operations, hearing fragments of conversations. What if we gave the FBI enough information about the Saigon Circle that they become a bigger problem than Dominic is worth? We don't trade. We transform the entire situation. Chloe puts down her fork. You'd be putting yourself in federal jurisdiction. I'd be putting myself in a position where I'm valuable as a witness, which means neither Franco nor the Saigon Circle can touch me without serious consequences. I look at Franco. It's not perfect, but it's something. Franco studies me for a long moment. Then he nods slowly. Gather your observations. Write down everything you remember. Every name, every conversation fragment, every location. I'll compile the intelligence my people have gathered. By tomorrow morning, we'll have a package. And then we burn it all down, he says quietly. Both of us together. That night, I can't sleep. I sit at the kitchen table and write everything I've heard, everything I've observed, everything that might be useful. Chloe comes out at 3 a.m. and sits across from me. You're going to testify, aren't you? She says. That's what this really is. Maybe. That's why he's doing this. Not to protect you. To give you agency so you'll choose to help him willingly. She pauses. It doesn't make what he's doing wrong. But it's worth understanding that his manipulation is just more sophisticated than most people's. I want to argue with her, but I can't. She's right. Franco is offering me the illusion of choice while steering me toward the exact outcome he wanted from the beginning. And the infuriating part is that I'm going to follow that path anyway, because she's also right that it's better than the alternatives. Around 5 a.m. Before I could second-guess any of it, Franco leveraged the very dossier we'd compiled. He put a message through intermediaries the circle actually respected. Proof of scheduled federal contact that morning. Cross-referenced names, routes, accounts. Not a threat, an inevitability. 30 minutes later, they pushed Dominic out of a car on a side street and vanished. No heroics, no gunfire. Just a quiet concession to a worse storm gathering. By morning, Franco arrives with Dominic, who looks like he's been through something violent, but is functioning. Franco takes the pages I've written, reviews them with an expression that suggests I've given him something valuable, and makes a phone call. The conversation is brief. He schedules a meeting with federal agents for that afternoon. As we prepare to leave the apartment, to cross a line that I suspect will be permanent, I realize that Franco has managed something extraordinary. He's taken my resistance and transformed it into cooperation. He's made me complicit in his survival while protecting mine. And the worst part is that I'm not even certain whether he's manipulating me, or whether I'm finally seeing clearly for the first time since he kissed me in the rain. The FBI field office is not what I expected. It's professional, sterile, designed to put people at ease, while simultaneously reminding them they're in a place where serious business happens. Special Agent Morrison is a woman in her early 50s with graying hair pulled back severely and eyes that have clearly seen too much to be surprised by anything I might tell her. She sits across from Franco and me in a conference room on the 4th floor, with Dominic stationed outside the door like a perimeter guard. An assistant U.S. attorney sits in as well, expression unreadable. This isn't a handshake deal. Anything we say lives inside statutes and filings. Franco has compiled his intelligence into a folder so thick it barely fits on the table. He slides it across to Morrison without ceremony. That's 3 years of documented operations, locations, personnel, financial flows, supply chains, everything you need to move against the Saigon Circle. Morrison doesn't open it immediately. She looks at Franco with the expression of someone who has negotiated with criminals before. And what's your ask? A targeted non-prosecution agreement tied to our cooperation. You don't move against us. We continue operating within parameters I've already established. No trafficking in substances that destabilize communities. No unnecessary violence. No operations that create federal jurisdiction issues. You're asking me to turn a blind eye to organized crime. I'm asking you to prioritize threats. Put it in writing. If we breach, you rescind. If we keep the lines, you focus your weight where it actually saves lives. I'm asking you to recognize that removing me creates a vacuum that gets filled by people far worse than I am. The Saigon Circle, the Russian syndicates, the cartels, they're all waiting for power to shift. What I offer is stability, controlled territory, a business model that doesn't require creating social collapse. Franco sits back in his chair. I'm pragmatic about what I am, Agent Morrison. I'm not pretending to be anything else, but I'm also acknowledging that some forms of organized crime are preferable to others. Morrison studies him for what feels like an eternity. Then she turns to me. And you're willing to testify? To detail what you've observed and heard? I am, I say, but I need protections. I don't want witness protection. But I need assurance that neither Franco's organization nor the Saigon Circle will perceive me as a liability they need to eliminate. That's not something I can guarantee. No, Franco interjects, but I can. Haley testifies, the Saigon Circle becomes the FBI's problem, and I personally ensure that any operative who touches her will find no incentive to try. Consider that a guarantee of deterrence on my side. I'm not in the habit of losing what I've committed to protect. That guarantee is worth more than federal protection, because I don't have bureaucratic limitations on how I enforce it. It's an ugly promise delivered with complete sincerity, and somehow that sincerity is the thing that makes Morrison consider it seriously. The next 3 days blur together. Dominic is extracted in a coordinated operation that makes it clear Franco's intelligence was comprehensive and actionable. I watch from the safe house as the FBI moves simultaneously on 7 locations. Television reports show arrests, confiscated materials, disrupted operations. The Saigon Circle's infrastructure collapses like a house built on sand. My involvement is minimized but crucial. I spend Wednesday afternoon in a secure facility being debriefed, offering fragments of conversations I overheard, behavioral patterns I observed, names and locations that filled the gaps in Franco's formal intelligence. Everything I provide fits precisely into the larger picture he'd already constructed. Everything I add makes the case stronger. By Friday, the operation is effectively concluded. 17 arrests, millions in assets seized. The Saigon Circle's Boston operations are dismantled. The organization survives elsewhere, but the immediate threat has been neutralized. Franco's gamble worked. By trading information he had anyway, he eliminated his most pressing rival while appearing cooperative to federal authorities. But somewhere in the middle of this, Chloe's appointment with Dr. Hendricks happens. I'm not there. Franco takes her alone on Monday morning while I'm at the FBI facility. When they return, Chloe is quiet, in the way that suggests the appointment wasn't routine. Dr. Hendricks, who is apparently as excellent as Franco claimed, has recommended surgical intervention. Chloe's anemia is severe enough that medication management alone won't be sufficient. Surgery is needed. Expensive surgery. The kind that requires not just one doctor but a surgical team, and a hospital stay and recovery time. I'm sitting in the living room of the safe house when Franco enters carrying paperwork. He sets it on the table in front of me without preamble. What is this? I ask. Documentation of Chloe's pre-surgical consultation. Dr. Hendricks has scheduled her for Friday. The hospital has confirmed the surgical suite. Post-operative care is arranged. Franco. It's handled. The costs are covered. The anger comes first. Immediate and clean. You can't just pay for my sister's medical care without asking me. I can, and I have. He sits across from me. Your pride is not a valuable commodity right now, Haley. Your sister's health is. Which one matters more? That's not fair. No, it's not. But it's accurate. He leans forward slightly. You came from a background where accepting help meant losing autonomy. I understand that. But you're not that person anymore. You're someone who's survived direct exposure to organized crime and who's agreed to testify against a rival organization. You've moved beyond the point where your independence can be maintained in the way you want it to be. So I'm supposed to just accept being managed by you. You're supposed to accept that someone has resources you lack and is willing to use them for your benefit. That's not management. That's partnership, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. I want to argue more, but the truth is that Chloe needs this surgery. The truth is that I can't afford it. The truth is that Franco is offering something I can't refuse without harming the person I love most. It's coercion wrapped in generosity, and I'm beginning to understand that this is exactly how Franco operates. He gives people what they need, and then collects the debt in ways that are far more valuable than money. Friday arrives with morning light that seems inappropriately beautiful. Chloe goes into surgery at 7 a.m. Franco drives us both to the hospital, which is apparently also arranged through his connections. The surgical team is excellent. The facility is private. Everything operates like a well-oiled mechanism designed specifically to ensure optimal outcomes. The surgery lasts 4 hours. I sit in a waiting room that's nicer than most people's apartments, drinking terrible coffee and trying not to think about all the things that could go wrong. Franco sits beside me, reading something on his phone, apparently unconcerned. His calm is infuriating and comforting in equal measure. When Chloe comes out of recovery, she's groggy but intact. The surgeon reports successful removal of a lesion that was creating complications with her blood cell production. Recovery should be straightforward. She should experience significant improvement within weeks. I'm allowed to sit with her in the private recovery room. She drifts in and out of consciousness, occasionally squeezing my hand when she's aware enough to know I'm there. Franco remains in the background, orchestrating everything, making sure nurses check on her appropriately, ensuring medication is administered on schedule, communicating with Dr. Hendricks about post-operative care. By Sunday evening, Chloe is stable enough to return to the safe house. Franco has arranged for a nurse to visit daily for the first week to monitor her recovery. The entire operation, from diagnosis to surgery to aftercare, has been executed with the precision of someone used to managing complex logistics. On Monday morning, I find Franco in the kitchen making coffee. The apartment smells like the life we've been living for weeks now. Contained, managed, orchestrated. Thank you, I tell him, because it's the only thing that makes sense to say. You don't need to thank me. I do, because I wanted to resent you for it, and I realized I can't. You gave my sister something I couldn't give her. That matters more than my pride. Franco hands me a cup of coffee. Your pride will return. People like you always recover that. But for now, accept that some things are beyond your control, and some people have the capacity to manage those things for you. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you practical. I take the coffee and wonder when exactly Franco became the person I turned to for reassurance. When exactly my captor became my confidant. When exactly the line between coercion and care became so impossibly blurred that I can no longer distinguish between them. Leaving the safe house feels like stepping out of someone else's life and back into my own, except nothing about my life is the same anymore. The apartment we returned to, our real apartment, smells stale, like the space has been holding its breath waiting for us. Chloe moves carefully, her recovery still in early stages. The incision along her side is healing well according to Dr. Hendricks, but she's weak in ways that make me realize how much her illness had eroded her baseline. She returns to school on Monday. Franco arranges transportation through drivers who don't announce themselves as security, but who clearly are. Chloe finds this embarrassing. I find it reassuring. We're both adjusting to the new parameters of safety that Franco has established around us. I go back to Vittorio's on Wednesday evening. Derek treats me with the careful distance of someone who knows more than he's saying. The other servers avoid my section initially, like proximity to me might be contagious. But gradually, over the course of a week, the normal rhythms reassert themselves. I take orders, deliver plates, manage the small politics of restaurant work like nothing significant has occurred in my absence. Franco returns on Thursday night. He sits at table 12, alone as always. When I approach with my notepad, he orders the branzino without looking at me, just as he did months ago in a life that feels archaeological now. But after I deliver his meal, he asks me to sit during my break. How are you adjusting? He asks. And there's something almost formal in the question, like he's checking a box on some internal assessment. Better than expected. Worse than I'd like. The usual compromises. Your sister is recovering well. Doctor Hendricks reports significant improvement in her blood work. I know. She tells me everything. I'm watching him cut his fish with unnecessary precision. Why are you doing all this? The doctor, the surgery, the transportation. You know it creates a debt I can never repay, right? That's the point. Franco sets down his knife and fork. It's not about debt. It's about establishing that I'm capable of maintaining my commitments. You're beginning to matter to me, which means your welfare is now something I manage directly. That sounds like possession dressed up as care. Perhaps, but it's also genuine. He picks up his wine glass. The question you need to ask yourself is whether the motivation behind the action matters more than the action itself. I care for you and I want to control you. Both things are true simultaneously. Most people find that impossible to accept, so they construct a narrative where one is true and the other is a facade. I'm offering you the courtesy of acknowledging both. I don't respond because there's nothing to say that would change the fundamental dynamic. He's right. I do matter to him. And that mattering has transformed me into something that requires management. Over the next 2 weeks, Franco appears at the restaurant with increasing frequency. Not always at the same time. Sometimes he's there early, sometimes late, sometimes with Dominic, sometimes alone. I begin to understand this is deliberate. He's establishing presence without claiming territory. He's making sure everyone at Vittorio's understands that I exist in proximity to him, without explicitly stating why that matters. One Friday night, he arrives while I'm setting up tables before service. He walks into the empty restaurant carrying coffee from the place 2 blocks away, where I mentioned once, just once, that I preferred their espresso to Derek's machine. Peace offering, he says, setting it on the bar counter. For what? For the next thing I'm about to tell you. He sits on one of the bar stools. Your sister received notification today. She's been offered a full scholarship to MIT. academic excellence plus demonstrated financial need. The application was perfect. I know immediately that this is Franco's work. Chloe is brilliant, but so are thousands of other applicants. The scholarship timing is too convenient, the acceptance too clean. Did you buy her way in? No. I bought her application materials professional review, which means the admissions committee saw her actual work instead of scrolling past it. Her scores got her through. Her essays got her accepted. I just made sure the essays were seen. That's still manipulation. Everything is manipulation, Haley. The question is whether it's being done with her interests as priority or against them. He sips his own coffee. Your sister will change the world in ways both of us are too limited to imagine. I simply ensured that universities with the resources to develop her talents could see what she's capable of. I want to argue, but the real problem is that I can't. Chloe got into MIT because she's brilliant. Franco just made sure her brilliance wasn't overlooked in a stack of applications. Around the same time, I meet Joshua at school. I've returned to complete my degree, taking evening classes while I work, and he's in my political science seminar. He's smart in the way that comes from reading constantly and thinking about what he reads. He has decent-looking hands, and he laughs at appropriate moments, and he asks me to get coffee afterward. I say yes because I want to prove something. That Franco hasn't completely colonized my ability to have normal interactions with normal people. That I can exist in a life that doesn't involve criminal enterprise and complicated power dynamics. Joshua is almost boring in his normalcy. We talk about textbooks and politics, and his dissertation on institutional power structures. He's exactly the type of person I imagined I'd end up with before everything changed. And he's also completely insufficient. Because somewhere in the middle of our conversation about administrative bureaucracy, I realize I'm thinking about Franco, about how he'd read Joshua's research and identify 3 ways it was incomplete, how he'd pushed Joshua toward better arguments the way he pushed me toward better understanding. I end up telling Franco about Joshua because he asks who I've been having dinner with on Thursday nights, and lying feels pointless. Franco's response is to nod once, and then never ask about Joshua again, which is somehow worse than if he'd been jealous or angry, because it suggests he's so confident in his hold on me that he doesn't perceive Joshua as competition. By day 70, things have settled into a pattern that resembles equilibrium. Chloe is recovering beautifully. She starts applying to summer internships. I work at Vittorio's and attend school and have increasingly awkward coffee dates with Joshua. Franco appears at the restaurant with decreasing frequency, which I tell myself is good because it means he's moving on, that whatever he wanted from me is resolving. The night everything shifts again is unremarkable on the surface. Franco comes to Vittorio's alone, orders his usual meal, and after I bring dessert, he asks if I can meet him after my shift at the location we visited before. The cafe that's safely public but neutral territory. Something's happened, he says when I arrive at midnight, still smelling like work. The FBI has decided they want more detailed information from you. They want you to provide a sworn statement, recorded, that will serve as testimony if trial becomes necessary. I thought we resolved this. We did. But cases have moving parts. Information emerges that requires corroboration. You're valuable in ways that extend beyond what we initially anticipated. Meaning you're valuable, and I'm still attached to you. So I become valuable by association. Partially true. He wraps his hands around his coffee cup. But also genuinely. Your observations have led to 3 additional prosecutions. People I never would have given the FBI evidence against have been charged based on what you witnessed and reported. You've become important to the actual justice system, not just to me. And if I refuse, then the FBI applies pressure. Prosecutors become less cooperative about your immunity. Things become complicated. Or you testify and you're protected because multiple systems have invested in your safety. He looks at me directly. I'm being honest about this. There is no scenario where your involvement ends cleanly. You're too far inside now. The only question is whether you control your level of exposure, or whether the government does. I leave Vittorio's that night and drive to the ocean even though it's out of the way and it's late, just needing space between myself and all the things I can't untangle. Because the truth Franco isn't saying is that I'm trapped in a different way now. Not by him, by the legal system. By the choices I made when I decided to help bring down the Saigon Circle. By the fact that becoming a witness doesn't return you to normal life. It dissolves your normal life entirely and replaces it with a new one built on testimony and surveillance, and the permanent knowledge that you're valuable to systems far larger than yourself. The news breaks on a Tuesday morning. Saigon Circle dismantled. 17 arrests. Millions seized. The headlines treat it like a victory, like organized crime works in discrete boxes that can be opened and shut by federal intervention. The reality Franco explains to me over coffee is more complicated. The Saigon Circle still exists. It operates in other cities, other territories. What collapsed in Boston was infrastructure, not the organization itself. Franco's intelligence to the FBI created enough disruption to destabilize their operations locally, which is all he needed to secure dominance in this region without direct confrontation. The FBI investigation into Franco's own activities concludes without indictments. Agent Morrison meets with him twice more, both times to clarify details about operations already discussed. Franco is careful to ensure that everything he provided came from legitimate intelligence gathering within his own organization. Nothing incriminating. Nothing that would constitute active evidence of prosecutable crimes. He walks a line so precise that it suggests he's been doing this calculation his entire life. I know this because he tells me. Around day 71, Franco invites me to dinner at a restaurant that's not Vittorio's. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere designed for conversations that need privacy, but not secrecy. He arrives in a charcoal suit that fits like it was constructed around his body specifically. His scar catches the restaurant's amber lighting in a way that makes him look older and younger simultaneously. The FBI has concluded their investigation, he says after we order. I'm not being charged with anything. The immunity your testimony helped secure extends to my organization as long as we maintain the operational parameters we've established. Meaning what exactly? Meaning we become more ethical than we were. Not ethical in the traditional sense, but ethical within our system. He cuts his fish with the same precision he cuts everything. My men are receiving better compensation. Operations that cause unnecessary civilian casualties are being reviewed and altered. We're establishing protocols that reduce harm without reducing function. I listen to him describe organizational restructuring like it's the most normal thing in the world. But underneath his words, I recognize what's happening. He's telling me that his conversations with me have changed how he operates. That my perspective, someone from outside his world, someone untainted by its logic, has influenced him enough to restructure things. Is this because of me? I ask. Partially. You separated the justification from the action. You acknowledge that I'm a criminal, while also pointing out that the degree of cruelty is a choice I make. He pauses. Most people can't hold both things in their minds simultaneously. They need me to be either entirely evil or entirely justified. You're the first person who's treated me as simply human. Around the same time, Chloe receives her MIT acceptance. Full scholarship, early admission. When I find out about Franco's role in her application, I'm angry in the abstract way that comes from understanding he manipulated a system for her benefit. But Chloe's reaction is pragmatic. She thanks him directly. She asks him questions about his connections in technology companies. She's accepted that Franco is part of her life now and has decided to extract maximum value from that relationship. I return to school more seriously. I'm in classes with people who have cleaner lives, simpler problems. Joshua is in my political science seminar again. He asks me to get coffee, and I say yes because I want to exist in a normal universe occasionally. We talk about administrative structures and institutional power. He's brilliant in ways that are comprehensible and contained. We kiss once at his apartment after a study session. It's pleasant. It's forgettable. Franco doesn't ask about Joshua until day 84, and even then, it's not a question. He mentions that I've been seeing someone else, and when I confirm it, he simply nods. The absence of jealousy is somehow more threatening than if he'd expressed it, because it suggests he's so confident in his hold on me that other men are irrelevant. By day 90, Franco's operation has visibly transformed. Dominic tells me he's become friendly with me in a way that suggests Franco authorized it, that Franco instituted new protocols for territory disputes. No killing without approval from Franco personally, no civilian targeting. Retaliation must be proportional to offense. These are small changes within a criminal organization, but they're changes nonetheless. Chloe leaves for MIT orientation in August. She hugs me goodbye at the airport, and I can feel her relief at escaping Boston temporarily. She's been uncomfortable with Franco's presence in our lives, not because she fears him, but because she recognizes exactly how completely he's woven himself into our existence. After she leaves, Franco visits me at my apartment for the first time. We stand in the space where we lived before everything changed, and the contrast is jarring. This small place with its thin walls and squeaky floorboards versus the elegant apartment he maintains. This normal life I'm trying to maintain versus the criminal empire he manages. Your sister will do extraordinary things, he says, looking out my window at the street below. She has the capacity for brilliance that transcends whatever system she's born into. Thank you for that. For MIT. For everything. I did it because she's important to you, not because she's inherently worthy of assistance. I want to be clear about my motivations. I know, and I do. That's what makes it complicated. Franco is honest about his manipulation in ways that most people aren't honest about theirs. He doesn't pretend to be altruistic. He doesn't dress up his control in the language of protection. He's simply clear that he's invested in me, and therefore invested in my sister's welfare. Around day 98, I testify for the FBI. It's a recorded deposition in a secure facility. They ask me to detail everything I observed while in Franco's apartment, everything I heard during phone conversations, everything I can corroborate about the Saigon Circle's operations. I answer with precision and without emotional inflection. I've become a witness now, a vessel for information rather than a person with experience. When I finish, I feel fundamentally altered, like some essential part of me has been cataloged and filed away. I'm no longer just Haley Cole who works at a restaurant and goes to school. I'm Haley Cole, confidential informant. Haley Cole, witness against organized crime. Haley Cole, instrumentalized for legal purposes. Franco picks me up from the FBI facility. He doesn't ask how it went. He drives me to the ocean because he somehow understands that I need to process this alone, but in company. We stand on a beach that's cold and gray, and he tells me something he's never said directly before. I know this is complicated. I know you're not certain whether you chose this or whether I orchestrated it. I know the ambiguity bothers you more than clarity would. He watches the waves. I'm going to tell you something true. I have been manipulating you since the moment I saw you. I've been strategic about every interaction. But manipulation and genuine feeling aren't mutually exclusive. I can want to control you, and also want your well-being. Both things are true. I know, I say. That's what makes it impossible to hate you. Is that what you want? To hate me? I don't know what I want anymore. Franco nods like this is the answer he expected. Like my uncertainty is something he can work with. And perhaps he can. Because by day 100, I'm still here. Still seeing him. Still entangled in his life in ways that have become impossible to untangle. The question is no longer whether I can leave him. The question is whether leaving would actually constitute freedom, or just a different form of imprisonment. The restaurant hasn't changed in a year, which is both comfort and reminder. Same burgundy walls, same Italian tiles behind the bar, same kitchen sounds at dinner rush. What's changed is me. I'm working 4 nights a week instead of 5, attending Boston College full-time during the day, and I've stopped trying to pretend there's a future where Franco Giardoni isn't part of my calculation. He arrives on Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. Not 8 o'clock sharp anymore. He's granted himself permission for small variations, which Derek finds amusing. Franco sits at table 12 and orders the branzino without looking at me, which is the signal that tonight is routine rather than significant. There's a difference now. I've learned to distinguish between the moments when he's simply present and the moments when he's trying to communicate something that requires my full attention. I bring his food and stay long enough to ask if he needs anything else. He tells me no. I return to other tables. This is the choreography we've developed over 12 months of existing in the same spaces without fully crossing the line from complicated coexistence into actual relationship. We're something, but we've agreed not to name it, because naming creates expectations we both know would be violated by circumstance. By 10 p.m., the restaurant has emptied. Derek closes early on Wednesdays. I watch Franco finish his wine while I wipe down the bar. He catches my eye and nods toward the back. I follow him to the patio where it all began, though the weather tonight is mild instead of brutal. No rain, no storm, just October air that smells like possibility instead of danger. "How's school?" he asks. "Challenging. Good. I'm finally understanding what I actually want to study instead of just what I thought I was supposed to study." I lean against the stone pillar we stood near before. Political science with focus on criminal justice reform. Which is ironic, I know. It's not ironic. It's direct. Franco sits on the edge of a stone table. "You're trying to understand the systems that created people like me. I'm trying to understand systems, period. People are secondary. But it's a lie and he knows it. I'm trying to understand how institutional failures create criminal empires, how power corrupts and consolidates, how someone like Franco becomes inevitable, rather than exceptional. Your sister called me yesterday," he says. "She's doing exceptionally well at MIT. Better than exceptional. She's publishing research as an undergraduate, which is nearly impossible. She mentioned it. She's working on computational systems for water purification in developing countries." I smile, thinking about Chloe. About how she's become someone completely independent of Franco, despite his best efforts to establish himself as essential to her. She's going to do impossible things. "Because of resources you provided?" Franco asks. "Because she's brilliant. You just opened doors that were already there." I pause. "That matters, but it doesn't make her indebted to you." "I know." He stands and walks to the edge of the patio where city lights reflect off the garden stones. That's what took me longest to understand. Providing resources doesn't create obligation. It creates the possibility of gratitude without debt. Your sister understood that before you did. I join him at the edge. Below us, Boston continues its complicated existence. People going about lives that don't involve organized crime or FBI testimony or permanent entanglement with mafia families. Sometimes I wonder what those lives feel like. More often, I've stopped wondering because I know my answer doesn't matter anymore. "The Giardoni organization has changed," Franco says. "Significantly. We're still criminal, still violent when necessary. But we've instituted protocols that prevent what we used to do casually. Dominic says it's because of you. It's because you chose to listen. I just spoke. You also left. After the FBI deposition, you tried to resume normal life. You saw Joshua consistently for 3 months. You attended classes. You worked. You built something separate from me." He turns to face me. "Most people would have used proximity to exploit it further. You used distance to establish that you had autonomy. That taught me something about actual respect versus possession. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand that I'm aware of what I've done, and I'm aware of what you've cost me by resisting it." He pauses. "You made me better. Not good. Better. And that's valuable beyond anything I can quantify. The words between us are dangerous territory. They're too close to confession. Too close to the kind of acknowledgement that could transform everything or destroy it. I'm not in love with you," I say, because someone needs to state the obvious. "I know. You're entangled with me. That's different, and probably more permanent than love." He moves back toward the restaurant. "Come here. I want to show you something." Inside Vittorio's, Derek looks up from the register. Franco nods at him and Derek, apparently taking this as signal, gathers his things and leaves. Franco walks me to his table and pulls out his phone. He shows me photographs. They're of his operation, but not in the traditional sense of documentation. They're photographs of spaces where his men work, and those spaces have been transformed. New lighting has replaced dim warehouse aesthetics. Workspaces have actual chairs. There's a kitchen where food is prepared for his operations. Medical supplies are visible in one corner. It's not exactly respectable, but it's no longer purely extractive. "What am I looking at?" I ask. "Restructuring. Every suggestion you made about operational efficiency that wasn't criminal in nature, I implemented. Every observation about unnecessary brutality, I addressed. Your testimony to the FBI about your observations became blueprint for how to operate better." He puts the phone away. "You've become embedded in my operational structure whether you intended that or not. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest. The front door opens and Chloe walks in, still wearing her MIT hoodie, carrying her backpack like she's just arrived from the airport, which she has. She's home for fall break and apparently coordinated this with Franco because she's not surprised to see him. "Hey," she says, embracing me first, then Franco in a way that suggests genuine affection. "I brought copies of my research. I wanted to show both of you before it's published." She spreads papers across table 12. Her research is extraordinarily complex, involving algorithms and systems I don't fully understand. But Franco reads through it with complete attention, occasionally asking questions that make Chloe's eyes light up because he's actually engaging with the content rather than performing interest. I watch them from behind the bar and realize something fundamental has shifted. A year ago, I was terrified Franco would destroy my sister. Now I'm watching him facilitate her brilliance in ways that matter. Not because he owns her through obligation, but because he's intelligent enough to recognize talent and generous enough to support it without demanding return on investment. "This is genuinely exceptional," Franco tells her. "You should present this at conferences. This matters beyond academia." "It will. That's the plan." Chloe starts gathering papers. "I have to catch a ride home. Mom's waiting, but I wanted to see you both before I left." After she goes, Franco and I sit in the empty restaurant. The silence between us is no longer uncomfortable or charged. It's just what exists between two people who have moved through trauma together and emerged altered. "A year ago, I walked out of this restaurant not knowing what I was," I say. "I knew what I did. Waitress, student, sister. But I didn't know what kind of person I was capable of being. And now I know I'm capable of accepting things I thought I'd never accept. Making decisions that are pragmatic instead of idealistic. Existing in spaces with people like you without collapsing under the contradiction." I look at him. "I'm capable of a lot of things I didn't know about myself. Is any of it good?" "Some. The parts where I stayed true to myself despite your manipulation. The parts where I didn't let you completely rewrite who I am." I pause. "But also the parts where I understood why you did what you did. Where I developed genuine respect for how you operate. Those parts are complicated." Franco nods, like this is the answer he expected. Like my complicated feelings are exactly what he anticipated and wanted. "Will you keep working here?" he asks. "For now, until I finish my degree." "Then I don't know. Law school, maybe. Something where I can work on the systems instead of being caught in them. And if I ask you not to, then I'll do it anyway. Because that's the part of myself I'm keeping. The part that doesn't move just because you suggest direction." He seems satisfied by this. Like my refusal to be entirely controlled is proof that what exists between us has some genuine foundation beyond possession. We close Vittorio's together that night. He helps me wipe tables. We walk to our cars in the October darkness. He kisses me once before I drive away, and it's not passionate or urgent. It's just acknowledgement of what we are to each other. Something permanent. Something unresolved. Something that will continue to exist whether we're in the same room or thousands of miles apart. A year after he kissed me in the rain and I threatened to end him, I've learned that threats and promises are often the same thing. I threatened to destroy him, and instead I've transformed him. He promised to protect me, and instead he's given me the tools to protect myself. We're not a love story. We're something rarer. We're two people who saw each other completely and decided the other was worth remaining entangled with. Complications and contradictions intact. The end.